So how long did you serve in the military?
Right on. So I was in the Army Reserves for 6.5 years, specifically August of 2017 to January 31st of 2024.
What inspired you to join the military?
Right. So when I grew up, there were still a lot of World War II veterans, that kind of thing. So lots of people around, things like this, coming to school, taking part in Remembrance Day ceremonies really kind of, had me a little bit curious about it. But when I was of school age, 9/11 had happened, and I grew up watching these things on the news with the World Trade Center, Canadian forces in Afghanistan, and a lot of parents of my friends were going over there. So, and oddly enough, with today, day of recording being Take Your Kid to Work Day, when I was in my own Take Your Kid to Work Day in grade 9, that's the day that the Canadian government had announced that the Afghanistan conflict was coming to a close. So all of these things in my life, I'd seen, troops, soldiers on TV, air personnel, Navy folks. It really got me kind of inspired to want to serve my community, trying to find that in different ways. But then eventually I decided, you know what, that's what I want to do. So in 2017, while I was in university, I decided to take the plunge, take the challenge, and ended up, doing my thing with the Army Reserves.
What was your first role in the military, and what were some responsibilities?
Right on. So I was an infantry officer in the Army Reserves. So what that means is, like you may see in the movies or on TV or what have you, the infanteers are the people who actually, go and take ground, hold ground, that kind of thing. That's what makes the infantry unique. In the modern context, though, that role's changing quite a bit. So, I could go on about what that means, but my specific job as an officer, I was in the management side of things. So not only did I have to learn the job of my people, my soldiers, but I also had to know how to manage and how to lead. So that's what I did. I started in 2017 to about 2019 doing my training, learning that job, getting familiar with managing folks. And then when I became a qualified platoon commander is what we would call it. Then I was in charge of about 20 to 30 individuals. That was great. That was the best experience I had leading my platoon. And then eventually, going through the ranks, I finished my career as a company second in command. So in charge of now about 100 people, making sure that all of their administration is done, that everything's good to go if they're going out and training or working, or we had a couple of folks who went overseas in various capacities, just making sure that they had everything they needed on that side. So I was really proud of that time, really proud of my soldiers, and it was a really rewarding experience.
What is some advice or a lesson that you learned during your time that has stuck with you to this day?
So for speaking in terms of just life lessons, there are plenty, right? That they can be as simple as waking up in the morning and making your bed, right? Anybody who's seen a movie or any of that kind of stuff would know that that's kind of where your day starts when you're doing the business. In terms of overall life lessons, though, I would say definitely time management. That's a huge thing. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. You're going to learn time management. But the biggest thing, and where I feel like it would serve a very good purpose in the school context, is resiliency. So mental resiliency, all of these kinds of things. It's a tough job, whether you're a cook, whether you're a clerk, whether you're an infantier or anything really. And when it comes down to it, you're going to face some really tough challenges in life. Certainly in the infantry, there are plenty that I can speak to. But the biggest thing was, teaching myself, because I was quite young when I joined. I was 20 until my late 20s, so quite a bit of time to get accustomed to it. But the biggest thing was being able to push myself despite these challenges. This is really hard right now, but how can I make this a little easier for myself? So it came down to a couple things. The first thing was, going to others and asking for help from people who knew what to do. And I feel like that's a big thing when we talk about school as well. When you don't know what to do, okay, who can we talk to make our job a little easier? The other thing was, staying up and staying up to date on like homework and that kind of thing. Shocker, you actually do have homework sometimes in the military. So making sure that rather than letting things pile up and become super stressful, you chunk things up and complete one task at a time. So I think that was a huge life lesson that I learned.
What was an experience that was really memorable or significant to you?
So certainly as a young guy, a big, I guess, a really good experience for me was being able to fire all kinds of weapon systems. That's not something that, average Joes or people in the Canadian public get to do often. So things like machine guns and pistols and grenades and all of this. It's something that you see in video games and on movies, but not so much in real life. So that's a really cool thing that people can do in the Army, or in the military in general, whether it's through the reserves or the regular force. But looking back on it as with a bit more age and experience, I can say that the best experience for me was definitely anything I was doing with my people, my folks. So a lot of really good people in the military taught me a lot. My subordinates and my peers, and even those who are above me, my superiors, taught me some really good life lessons, have made me who I am today, and have actually, they're the reason that I got into teaching, especially, having been a course officer, which means effectively you're a teacher in the military context. Getting to learn how to be in charge of people and how to take care of people was really big for me. So that was, I guess, a defining experience for me to get into teaching. So, two very different things, but some parallels there.
What are some things about military life that most civilians misconceptualize that are untrue or exaggerated?
Right on. So where I was a reservist, I kind of lived both of those lives for sure. Like when I wore the uniform, I definitely was a member of the armed forces community. But outside of that period, different than many folks' parents who do this for a living, I can certainly see why some of these things would be the case. A big one is that people who are in the military are either uneducated or they don't have anything better in life, and that's certainly not the case, especially in the reserves where it is, a part-time job for those that choose to do it that way, what we call Class A service. But you know what? A lot of my soldiers, when I was a platoon commander especially, had a degree at a minimum. They had a degree, or they had a community college diploma and or a Red Seal. So these are very successful people who came to us for the challenge, whether that was to actually see if they could do it. We had some older folks or younger folks that wanted to push themselves a little more and see what they were capable of. So it's definitely a huge misconception that people are coming to the military as a last resort or because they have nothing better to do. In fact, a lot of these people did have, a very successful life outside of the forces. I had businessmen, I had engineers, I had successful accountants for very successful companies. So that's a huge misconception that I feel like the public has, but really, folks in the military are some of the top notch of Canadian society when it comes to success, education, etc.
What is some advice you would give to someone who is considering a career in Canadian military?
So three things I think would help somebody a lot if they're considering a career in the forces. The first one is prepare to humble yourself. A lot of times, especially when we're young, I know this, having been both a West King student and a young guy myself, is to accept that you don't know everything coming into things, right? Especially in the training phase, that's where everybody starts. It doesn't matter if you want to be a doctor, or you want to be a armored soldier, or whatever. You have to be humble. You have to be able to take criticism because there's lots to give when you're new, and lots to take as well. And so being critical of what you're doing, understanding that sometimes you do make mistakes and that's okay, but knowing that sometimes you have to, eat a slice of humble pie and, take direction and advice where it's given. The other thing, the second big piece of advice that I would tell people, and this is true no matter what you do as well, a lot of these things apply to all trades, all services, is maintain fitness. And I don't just mean physical fitness, though that's a huge part of things, but it's also, like I talked about before, with mental resiliency, emotional health, all these kinds of things, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed. As an infanteer, my job was very physical, and certainly the jobs of my soldiers were extremely physical, and so maintaining that physical fitness is paramount. And when it comes down to it, a lot of things are told to you, like, you're ordered to do this, you're ordered to do that, but really, it's up to the individual to take initiative. That's why I think it's really important that people are getting into these habits, eating healthy, practicing good physical exercise, practicing good mindfulness and good mental health strategies. That's key, because if not, you won't succeed. Lots of people can join, but not a lot of people stay, and it's for those reasons that I have seen a lot of people leave. And then third, understand why it is that you've pursued a career in the forces, and always have that goal in mind. And setting goals is important. It's one of the things that we're taught: short-term, intermittent term, and long-term goals. So never lose sight of why it is that you came into the forces, and keep after that goal. That's what I would say.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Perry for taking the time to be interviewed. If you see him later today, please let him know how much we appreciate him and his service to our country.